Hey, Jack! Look! A whale! It's swimming right toward us! The shout from Tom Harper, the 18-year-old intern, cut through the sound of waves crashing against the boat, drowning out the whistle of wind through the tattered sails. Jack Sullivan, a weathered fisherman in his 40s, snapped his head up, his eyes tearing away from the net he was mending. On the shimmering surface of the sea, bathed in the glow of a Monterey, California sunset, a massive shadow rose from the water, approaching their small boat at an alarming speed. "Watch out, Jack! If we're not careful, that whale's gonna sink us!" Tom's voice trembled with panic, his young hands gripping the railing, eyes wide with awe and fear. Jack sprang to his feet, his calloused hand tightening on the helm, his salt and pepper hair whipping in the sea breeze. He squinted, trying to make out the shape through the fiery red of the sunset. The humpback whale, at least 50 feet long, slowed as it drew closer, but its presence sent ripples surging across the water. Jack's heart raced. He'd been at sea for over 20 years, seen whales from a distance, but never one this close. "Easy, Tom," he said, his voice low but tinged with tension. "It's not attacking. Something's wrong." The whale paused beside the boat, blowing a misty spout from its blowhole that formed a fleeting rainbow in the fading light. Then it lifted its head, revealing deep, soulful eyes that locked onto Jack's. In those eyes, he saw desperation, a wordless plea. Its low, mournful call echoed. Like a dirge rising from the ocean's depths, a chill ran down Jack's spine. This wasn't a threat. It was a cry for help. He knew if he didn't act, this whale wouldn't survive the night. Jack motioned for Tom to cut the engine, letting the boat drift on the waves. The engine's hum fell silent, leaving only the slap of water against the hull and the whisper of wind through the rigging. Tom, still trembling, stood behind Jack, his eyes glued to the whale. "What does it want, Jack?" he whispered, his voice shaky with fear and curiosity. "Why is it looking at you like that? Is it gonna do something?" Jack didn't answer right away. He stepped to the bow, his heavy boots thumping on the worn wooden deck, each step deliberate to avoid startling the whale. The sea breeze carried the sharp scent of salt and the biting chill of dusk, tousling his hair. He stood at the bow, hands gripping the railing, his gaze fixed on the humpback gliding slowly alongside. It dove briefly, then surfaced, revealing its massive back, and Jack's breath caught at the sight before him. Thousands of barnacles clung to the whale's skin, forming a crusty, armor-like layer of death. Their razor-sharp shells had burrowed deep into its flesh, leaving bleeding wounds that stained the water red. Each movement seemed to agony for the whale, its body quivering, its low moans now faint, as if life were slipping from its enormous frame. Jack's chest tightened. He'd spent half his life at sea, seen barnacles on rocks, on hulls, even on the corpses of whales washed ashore. But he'd never witnessed a living creature endure such torture. "God," Tom muttered, his face pale, his hands clutching the railing so tightly, his knuckles turned white. "Those barnacles, they're killing it, Jack. How are there so many? Why can't it get free?" Jack turned to Tom, his eyes stern but heavy with sorrow. "Barnacles latch on when a whale weakens," he explained, his voice steady but low. "Maybe it's sick or starving after a long migration. When its body's too weak, the barnacles take hold, dig in, and—" He trailed off, unwilling to finish. He knew these barnacles didn't just cling to the skin. They rooted deeper, siphoning blood and nutrients, draining the whale's strength. With this many, the creature had likely suffered for months, maybe years. The whale surfaced again, shaking its head as if trying to escape the pain, but it was futile. Blood poured from its wounds, mixing with the sea, creating long, shimmering red streaks in the sunset's glow. Jack spotted a few small shapes circling in the distance. Sharks. The scent of blood had drawn them, and if the whale wasn't saved, it would be easy prey. A wave of helplessness surged through him, but at the same time, a fierce determination ignited in his chest. He couldn't just stand by and watch this animal die. Jack remembered his childhood, when his father, a seasoned fisherman, taught him about the sea. "The ocean's not just a place to make a living, Jack," he'd said. "It's home to incredible creatures, and sometimes they need our help." Those words echoed in Jack's mind now, urging him to act. He rushed to the helm, grabbing the radio, his fingers trembling as he pressed the button. "This is Jack Sullivan, off the Monterey coast, near 36.6 north, 121.9 west. I need the Marine Rescue Team ASAP. There's a humpback whale covered in barnacles, bleeding and exhausted. Please hurry." A calm but firm voice crackled back. "Copy, Jack. We're on our way. Stay in contact and keep near the whale, but don't spook it. Thanks for the call." Jack set the radio down and turned back to the whale. It circled the boat slowly, its eyes still fixed on him, as if sensing he was its only hope. A heavy responsibility settled on his shoulders, but so did a strange connection to this massive creature. "Hang in there, big guy," he said softly, his voice catching as if to comfort them both. "Help's coming." Tom, standing nearby, began to steady himself. "You think they can save it, Jack?" he asked, his voice still shaky but laced with hope. Jack glanced at him, offering a faint smile. "If anyone can, it's the Monterey Rescue Team, but we've got to do our part." He clapped Tom's shoulder, signaling him to ready the anchor lines and check the boat. As they waited, Jack stood at the bow, his eyes never leaving the whale, as if afraid it might vanish forever if he looked away. While waiting for the rescue team, Jack and Tom did everything they could to keep the boat steady. The sea breeze grew stronger, carrying a biting chill, and the waves began to swell, rocking the boat. Jack adjusted the helm, keeping the boat close to the whale but far enough to avoid alarming it. Tom, though still nervous, started asking Jack about humpback whales, as if talking would ease his fear. "Why doesn't it swim away, Jack? Why is it staying so close to us?" Jack gazed out at the sea, where the whale still glided slowly, its calls steady like a faint heartbeat. "Maybe it knows we're its only shot," he replied, his voice low. "Humpbacks are smart, Tom. They can sense kindness or danger. This one, it's asking for help." Tom nodded, his eyes still wide with curiosity. As a teenager on his first trip at sea, everything about the ocean thrilled and terrified him. Jack remembered himself at that age, standing on his father's boat, awestruck by the vastness of the sea. Now he was guiding Tom, and he knew this moment would stay with the boy forever, a lesson etched in his soul. The sky deepened to a rich orange, the sunset painting the sea in vibrant hues. Jack checked the radio again, ensuring the rescue team could reach them. Worry crept in. Every minute that passed was another minute the whale lost strength. He glanced at the water, where blood from the whale's wounds still spread, attracting more small sharks. "Damn it," he muttered, clenching his fist. He knew if the rescue team didn't arrive soon, the whale wouldn't just die from the barnacles, it would become shark bait. Finally, a white speck appeared on the horizon, slicing through the waves at high speed. Jack exhaled, grabbing his binoculars. It was the Monterey Marine Rescue Boat, its bold lettering clear on the hull. The red vessel powered through the swells, carrying hope for Jack, Tom, and the whale fighting to survive. As the rescue boat approached, Jack signaled Tom to flash the signal light, helping the team pinpoint their location. The vessel pulled alongside, and 3 figures stepped aboard. Leading them was Dr. Sarah Bennett, a 35-year-old marine biologist with her brown hair tied back and sharp, focused eyes. Sarah was a renowned expert in Monterey, having led dozens of rescues, from entangled seals to stranded whales. With her were Mike Torres, a rugged professional diver with an easy smile, and Emily Chen, a petite but agile veterinary technician carrying a fully stocked medical kit. Sarah shook Jack's hand, her grip firm and warm. "Thanks for calling, Jack," she said, her voice direct but grateful. "Humpbacks are rare, and this sounds serious. Can you show us where it is?" Jack pointed to the whale, now surfacing a few yards away, its faint calls still echoing. Sarah peered through her binoculars, her brows furrowing as she saw the barnacles encrusting its back. "My God," she whispered, stunned. "I've never seen a whale with this many barnacles. They're draining its blood and weakening it. We need to move fast." Sarah turned to Mike and Emily, issuing crisp orders. "Mike, prep the dive gear and barnacle removal tools. Emily, check the antiseptic solution and first aid kit. We don't have much time." They nodded, diving into their tasks with impressive precision. Sarah faced Jack, outlining the plan. "We'll approach the whale underwater, removing the barnacles carefully to avoid further injury. But we need your boat to hold position and assist if anything goes wrong." Jack nodded instantly. "I'll do whatever you need," he said, his voice resolute. "Just tell me what to do." Sarah smiled, her eyes conveying trust. "You did the right thing calling us, Jack. Now, let's save this whale." She patted his shoulder, then turned to her team, preparing for one of the toughest missions they'd ever faced. The rescue began as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sea in vivid reds and golds. The team worked with remarkable efficiency, but tension hung in the air. Sarah stood on Jack's boat, directing via radio with a clear, commanding voice. Mike and Emily, suited up in dive gear and oxygen tanks, double-checked their specialized barnacle removal tools, thin metal rods designed to pry off the crusty shells without harming the whale's skin. Emily carried a bag of antiseptic solution and specialized bandages, ready to treat wounds on the spot. Sarah briefed Jack and Tom on the plan. "We'll approach the whale underwater, removing barnacles bit by bit. The key is not to scare it. Humpbacks are usually gentle, but if it panics, we could be in danger." She looked at Jack, her expression serious. "Can you keep the boat steady and close to the whale? We need an anchor point to work from." "I've got it," Jack replied, gripping the helm. Adrenaline surged through him, but he reminded himself to stay calm. One wrong move could put the whole team at risk. Mike and Emily slipped into the water, their dive lights cutting through the dimming sea. Jack maneuvered the boat to shadow the whale, maintaining a safe distance. Tom stood by, tracking the diver's bubbles on the surface. The whale, though weakened, seemed to sense the humans were helping. It floated calmly, occasionally spouting water and emitting low calls, as if communicating with them. Underwater, Mike and Emily worked with meticulous care. They swam close to the whale's back, their lights illuminating the barnacles clinging tightly. Each removal was a challenge. The sharp shells were embedded deep, and prying them off without causing more damage required finesse. Mike used the metal tools to lever off each barnacle, while Emily followed, spraying antiseptic on the small wounds to prevent infection. Blood clouded the water, but Emily worked swiftly, ensuring each injury was treated before moving on. On the boat, Sarah monitored via radio, staying in constant contact with Mike and Emily. "Watch the area near the dorsal fin," she said. "The skin's thinner there, more prone to damage." She jotted down data from the number of barnacles removed to the whale's condition for later reports. Jack, though focused on steering, couldn't help but admire the team's professionalism. He thought of the times he'd seen the sea as just a livelihood, and now he felt part of something greater. The barnacle removal wasn't easy. Some were lodged too deep, forcing Mike to use more force, causing the whale to flinch. At one point, it thrashed its tail, sending a wave that rocked the boat. Jack gripped the helm, sweat beading on his forehead as Tom yelped, clinging to the railing. "Steady! Steady!" Sarah called through the radio. Mike and Emily paused, waiting for the whale to settle before resuming. Jack's heart pounded, but he knew they couldn't give up. Slowly, the barnacle crust on the whale's back thinned, revealing smooth gray skin beneath. The bleeding stopped, and the whale began to swim with more strength, as if life were returning. When the final barnacle was removed, the sun had fully set, leaving a starlit sky. The team was exhausted but elated, their faces glowing with triumph. Sarah clapped Jack's shoulder, smiling. "You're part of this victory, Jack. This whale's going to live thanks to you." Jack watched the whale, now swimming freely, circling the boat as if in gratitude. Its eyes met his again, and this time there was no despair, only gratitude, a silent bond. "Good luck, big guy," Jack whispered, his voice thick. The whale let out a resonant call, then dove deep, vanishing into the dark sea. 6 months later, Jack's life had settled back into its rhythm. He went to sea daily, hauling nets, facing rough waters and quiet nights. Tom, now more confident, often joined him, learning to read the waves and predict the weather. But the memory of the humpback whale never faded. Sometimes, alone on deck under the stars, Jack wondered if the whale was still out there, healthy and free. He rarely shared the story, fearing disbelief, but he knew it was real, and it had changed him forever. One late autumn afternoon, Jack set out alone, leaving Tom ashore to help his father mend nets. The sky was overcast, dark clouds swirling with the promise of a storm. Jack checked the forecast before leaving, and though it warned of strong winds, he thought he could fish quickly and return. But the ocean, as he'd long learned, was unpredictable. The wind picked up miles from shore, and waves surged, tossing the boat violently. Jack fought the helm, but a massive wave crashed over, flooding the deck. Clinging to the railing, Jack's heart pounded as he realized the boat might capsize. Wind howled, rain stung his face like needles. "No!" he shouted, his voice lost in the storm's roar. The boat tilted further, and Jack felt himself slipping toward the sea. He thought of his family, of Tom, of the years he'd loved on the water. He didn't want it to end like this. Then, impossibly, the boat steadied. A powerful, solid force from below lifted it, holding it upright. Jack looked down, scarcely believing his eyes. Beneath the waves, a massive humpback whale swam alongside, its enormous body bracing the boat against the storm. Its eyes, those eyes, met Jack's, and he knew instantly. It was the whale he and the team had saved. It was returning the favor. Jack stood frozen, rain and tears mixing on his face. The whale stayed with the boat through the storm, its strength keeping it afloat. It glided close, each movement powerful yet careful, as if aware Jack depended on it. At one point, a towering wave loomed, and Jack braced for the end. But the whale pushed harder, lifting the boat over the crest, a silent hero of the sea. As the storm eased, the sky cleared, revealing faint sunlight through the clouds. Jack's boat still floated, soaked but intact. The whale circled one last time, spouting a shimmering mist, and lifted its head to meet Jack's gaze. He felt a profound connection, as if the whale was thanking him, not just for today, but for 6 months ago. Then it dove, its tail flicking gently, disappearing into the vast ocean. Jack returned to shore, exhausted but overwhelmed with emotion. He told the story to Tom, to Sarah, to anyone who'd listen. Word spread, and soon the tale of the fisherman and the whale made local papers and even a wildlife TV segment. Sarah and the rescue team visited Jack, embracing him as he recounted the miraculous rescue. "It's proof that kindness comes back," Sarah said, her eyes shining. Jack nodded, but he knew the story meant more. The whale hadn't just saved his boat. It had saved his faith in the bonds that transcend species and time. When Jack chose to save the whale, he hadn't expected a reward, but that act of compassion had returned to save him in his darkest hour. The lesson was clear. In an uncertain world, even small acts of kindness can spark miracles. Listen to the calls for help, from humans or creatures, and don't hesitate to reach out. For kindness, like ripples on the ocean, always finds its way back to those who give it.